Whenever I, tell folks what I do for a living, friends from college, people off the street, they're like, "What does a park ranger do?" My name is Cody Edwards. I'm the complex superintendent at Big Bend Ranch State Park in Chenati Mountains State Natural Area. I got started as an operations intern at Eisenhower State Park up in TPWD State Parks Division Region 6. And I took it as a summer gig after I decided that I wanted to finish my graduate degree and didn't want to go into the classroom, and thought I'd give it a try. And from there, I went off to work for the National Park Service for a few years, and then went back to Eisenhower State Park. From there, I went to Goliad State Park as the lead interpreter, Choke Canyon State Park as the assistant superintendent, and then South Llano River State Park as superintendent, before coming out to the beautiful Big Bend. We take all shapes and sizes with the TPWD. It really depends on what your skill set is and where your passion lies, in my opinion. So the State Parks Division, we need folks who can build. We need folks who can repair. We need folks who can, operate equipment, especially here at Big Bend Ranch. But we also need people who can teach our concept and our mission and translate that into interpretive programming for our visitors. We need folks who can lead. And to that end, we take, like I said, all shapes and sizes. If you want to be a park manager like myself, a degree is required, but that's not necessarily a requirement for all the positions, though I do have a degree in history. So Big Bend Ranch State Park, we're kind of special, not to brag, but my typical day is probably not typical to anybody else in the agency. So we have 3 units at Big Bend Ranch State Park. We have the Salceda unit, the interior, which incorporates most of our backcountry. We have Fort Leaton in Presidio, and then we have Barton Warnock over in Lajitas. So at least one day a week, I'm at one of those headquarters coordinating with that site superintendent and or complex staff, like our archaeologist, Mr. Tim Gibbs, or our complex office manager, Melissa Knasey. And so I visit with my staff and try to provide the best support that I can to the superintendents so that they can in turn do that for their folks. So I bounce from headquarters to headquarters at least 3 days a week, and then I get to spend the rest of my week, those other 2 days, catching up on emails and paperwork, submitting hiring packages, and coordinating with our local stakeholders in the community. Surprising facts that people don't know about my job. There's a lot more administrative work to being a park ranger than I ever would have anticipated. So whenever I, tell folks what I do for a living, friends from college, people off the street, they're like, "What does a park ranger do?" So anything that I tell them is a kind of a surprising fact. But I guess living in the park, that's a good one. Folks are really surprised at that, and they ask, "Well, what's it like to live in a park?" And I'll gush about it. I think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, if you ask me. My daughter, since she was 3 years old, has only known living in a state park. And to me, I think being as close as we are to nature, to the outdoors, it's healthy. It's an experience that very few people can say they get to experience, to have, right? And I think that's a pretty neat fact. Being able to collaborate with our Texas game wardens and state park police, as well as Big Bend Ranch State Park staff, we did our first annual search and rescue training exercise in collaboration with those folks. And as part of that exercise, I was able to go up with a couple of our Texas game wardens and survey my park from the air. And that was an experience that I've never had. And it was actually my first experience. It was my first ride in a helicopter. And to see the Solitario and that volcanic, area, that dome, the bowl, was fascinating. People have talked about how impressive that was to me on a number of occasions, and to be able to see the entire thing from the air was truly remarkable, and it was an experience I'll never forget, and an experience that I'm not sure how many folks have had that opportunity, and it is definitely one that I will cherish. I would come out and volunteer for the parks, whether it be applying for a paid or an unpaid internship. That's where I started as an operations intern. Come out and volunteer on that end too, right? If you don't have time to dedicate, 3 months for an internship, come out and work with us on the weekends. Sign up to be a Texas State Parks volunteer. Come out to the parks and visit with the staff. I haven't met a superintendent in any of the regions that I've worked at that would turn away somebody who was interested in coming to work for the parks. Find you a manager, find you an interpreter, a supervisor, and pick their brains, through volunteering. The best way to get out and set the stage for that type of dialogues, just to put yourself out there. And I don't think folks would regret it, honestly. That's part of what I did, and it landed me an internship, and the rest is history. So come out and volunteer with us, apply for an internship, paid or unpaid, or, get online and apply for one of those jobs if you feel you're qualified. We'd love to have you, but first and foremost, just ask questions.